Welcome back to the Dark History Style channel. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss another deep dive into the hidden side of history. What if everything Hollywood taught you about justice in the Wild West was completely wrong? Forget the noble sheriffs, honorable gunfights, and dramatic courtroom scenes. The real frontier was ruled by ropes, angry mobs, and punishments so savage they make modern justice seem almost merciful by comparison. Today, we're uncovering 11 of the most shocking punishments ever documented in the American frontier. Some were legal. Some were not. All of them were terrifying. Prepare yourself, because the truth is far darker than the legend. Punishment number 1, instant hanging. The fastest verdict in the Old West wasn't delivered by a judge. It was delivered by a rope. No courtroom. No defense attorney. No jury. Across large sections of the American frontier, a simple accusation could be enough to end a person's life. Whether the accusation was true often mattered very little. For countless victims, there was never an opportunity to prove innocence. The entire process, from accusation to execution, could happen in less than an hour. Death itself took only seconds. And that is not an exaggeration. Judge Isaac C. Parker, remembered as the infamous hanging judge, handed down more than 160 death sentences in Indian Territory. 7 to 9 of those sentences were ultimately carried out. Parker wasn't necessarily driven by cruelty. His mission was to bring order to a region where law enforcement barely existed. Yet on the frontier, the difference between justice and brutality was often as thin as the rope hanging from the gallows. The men who carried out these executions became legends of their own. One of the most famous was George Maldon, known as the Prince of Hangmen. For more than 20 years, he oversaw dozens of executions. He carefully prepared his ropes, treating them in ways he believed produced a cleaner and more humane death. One particular rope was used in 11 separate executions. Maldon reportedly took pride in that fact. But hanging served a purpose beyond punishment. It was entertainment. When the conspirators involved in President Abraham Lincoln's assassination were executed in 1865, public interest exploded. Thousands wanted tickets to witness the event. Although access was restricted to officials and military personnel, crowds gathered outside while packed trains delivered spectators eager to watch. On that day, death became one of the country's biggest attractions. And sometimes, things went horribly wrong. In 1901, outlaw Black Jack Ketchum faced execution by hanging. The rope length was calculated incorrectly. Instead of breaking his neck, the force severed his head from his body. Incidents like this forced executioners to develop mathematical formulas that considered a prisoner's weight and drop distance. Even then, mistakes remained common. And every mistake ended in tragedy. Public executions were community gatherings. Parents brought their children. Merchants sold food nearby. The death of a condemned person became a public lesson delivered before an audience. Obey the rules, or risk sharing the same fate. Even executions came with expenses. Records from Santa Fe in 1849 reveal that a single hanging could cost more than $110, equivalent to several $1,000s today. The rope, the lumber used to build the scaffold, the executioner's fee, even meals provided to the prisoner before death, all of it had a price tag. On the frontier, death was an industry. Yet even the rope sometimes failed. Texas outlaw Bill Longley survived an early hanging attempt when the rope snapped beneath him. His escape was temporary. Years later, the state executed him officially. The frontier rarely forgave. It merely postponed the outcome. Documents from Arkansas in 1875 even described what an ideal gallows should look like: elevated platforms, reinforced beams, and protective roofing. The roof wasn't built for the condemned. It was built for the comfort of the spectators. Because in the Wild West, witnessing death was considered a normal part of public life. When an execution failed, the consequences were horrifying. Instead of a quick death, the prisoner slowly suffocated while crowds watched. Former San Quentin warden Clinton Duffy later referred to such disasters as dirty hangings. But as brutal as hanging was, it was only the beginning. Punishment number 2, lynching. If hanging represented frontier justice, lynching represented something far worse. Mob rule. No judge. No evidence. No chance to defend yourself. Only an angry crowd deciding who deserved to die. Between 1882 and 1968, historians documented approximately 4,742 lynchings across the United States. In most cases, nobody faced punishment for the killings. Montana became one of the most notorious centers of vigilante violence. Between 1863 and 1865, Suspected horse thieves were hunted down and executed by organized mobs. Texas, California, and parts of the Deep South witnessed similar outbreaks. Where government authority failed, ropes and bullets took control. And innocence often became irrelevant. One famous example occurred in Tombstone, Arizona, in 1884. John Heath was accused of involvement in a robbery that resulted in deaths. Evidence remained questionable. The mob didn't care. They stormed the jail, dragged him outside, and hanged him publicly. The crowd wanted punishment, not proof. The brutality spared no one, not even children. 15-year-old Francisco Cota was accused in Los Angeles of involvement in a woman's murder. A mob seized him, dragged him through the streets, stabbed him repeatedly, and finally hanged him. Authorities stood nearby and did nothing. The term lynching itself likely traces back to Charles Lynch, a Virginia justice known for administering rough frontier-style punishments. Over time, the practice spread across the expanding American frontier. A rumor could become evidence. Suspicion could become a death sentence. International outrage eventually followed. Foreign governments protested after their citizens were lynched on American soil. Between 1887 and 1903, the United States paid hundreds of thousands of dollars in compensation to countries including China, Italy, Great Britain, and Mexico. The question became difficult to ignore. How could a nation claim to defend liberty while allowing mobs to kill without consequence? On rare occasions, perpetrators faced justice. But such cases were exceptions. More often, those responsible escaped punishment entirely. Some lynchings weren't driven by anger at all. They were driven by money. During Wyoming's Johnson County War, wealthy ranchers allegedly financed violent campaigns against smaller settlers competing for land. Economic power determined who lived and who died. And the true number of victims may never be known. Official records capture only a fraction of the violence. Many bodies were never identified. Many deaths were never documented. Every statistic hides countless forgotten stories. The frontier buried its secrets alongside its victims. And those victims were rarely chosen at random. Mexicans, Chinese immigrants, Native Americans, and other minority groups suffered disproportionately. Researchers estimate that nearly 600 Mexicans were lynched between 1848 and 1928 alone. 4 generations, these stories received little attention in mainstream history. The frontier did not distribute violence equally. It selected its targets carefully. In Rock Springs, Wyoming, during 1885, racial tensions exploded into deadly violence when white miners launched an attack against the town's Chinese population. By the time the chaos ended, at least 28 people were dead, 15 more were wounded, and dozens of homes had been burned to the ground. The conflict began as a labor dispute, but it quickly became a massacre. Not a single attacker received meaningful punishment. Federal troops eventually arrived, not to seek justice for the victims, but to restore order and protect property. Stability mattered more than accountability. Another infamous example occurred at Sand Creek, Colorado, in 1864. Colonel John Chivington led his forces against a Cheyenne and Arapaho encampment that believed it was under protection and flying a flag of peace. More than 150 people were killed. Most were women, children, and elderly individuals. Official reports at the time described the event as a battle. History remembers it differently. Collective punishment did not always involve bullets or direct attacks. During the 1870s, the destruction of the great bison herds devastated native nations across the plains. Millions of animals were slaughtered, eliminating a critical source of food, clothing, shelter, and tools. Without the buffalo, entire communities faced starvation. This was more than uncontrolled hunting. It became a weapon of domination. The punishment often extended beyond the accused. When a man was executed, his family frequently suffered alongside him. Wives lost financial support. Children inherited the stigma. Families were forced from homes, denied work, and treated as guilty by association. The sentence followed the bloodline long after the condemned was gone. What made collective punishment so effective was its purpose. It was designed to create fear. By targeting entire groups instead of individuals, authorities and vigilantes ensured that everyone understood the consequences of resistance. Communities learned that one person's actions could bring disaster upon many. Punishment number 7. Prolonged captivity. When prison was meant to break the spirit rather than reform the prisoner. Among the most feared institutions of the frontier stood the Yuma Territorial Prison in Arizona. Opened in 1876, it operated for more than 3 decades and confined thousands of inmates behind stone walls where summer temperatures regularly climbed beyond 120 degrees Fahrenheit. The prison story began with its own prisoners. The first inmates were forced to help construct the facility that would eventually imprison them. Thick adobe walls rose above solid rock, surrounded by desert on one side and the Colorado River on the other. Escape was nearly impossible. Those who attempted it faced a special punishment. The dark cell. A cramped chamber roughly 10 feet by 10 feet. No sunlight. Little ventilation. Insects, snakes, and scorpions sometimes shared the space. Prisoners survived on minimal food and water while heavy chains cut into their ankles. Guards stripped them down before locking them inside. Hours felt endless. Days felt unbearable. Yet humor carried a strange contradiction. The prison had electricity before many nearby towns. It offered a hospital, a library containing thousands of books, and even a prisoner band. Some locals sarcastically referred to it as the country club of the Colorado. But these comforts never erased the suffering. More than 100 inmates died during Yuma's operation, many from tuberculosis and diseases that spread through overcrowded conditions. Famous prisoners passed through its gates, including stagecoach robber Pearl Hart and the notorious gunman Buckskin Frank Leslie. Inside the walls, reputation offered no protection. Surviving records reveal crowded cells, harsh discipline, and conditions far removed from the myths later attached to the prison. Authorities rarely documented abuse. What evidence survives does so largely by accident. By 1909, overcrowding forced Yuma to close. The prison later became a school and even served community purposes during difficult economic times. Eventually, students adopted the nickname Yuma criminals after rivals mocked their school's unusual location. The prison disappeared. Its reputation never did. Punishment number 8, forced banishment. The death sentence disguised as mercy. Leave town before sunrise. Those words carried enormous weight on the frontier. Expulsion sounded merciful compared to hanging. But being forced into the wilderness without supplies often amounted to the same outcome. The difference was simply who carried out the execution. Nature. Vigilante groups and local committees frequently ordered unwanted individuals to leave immediately. The accused might receive a whipping first. Sometimes only a warning. The true punishment came afterward. Many banished men were later discovered dead from thirst, exposure, starvation, or animal attacks. By driving someone into the wilderness, a community could eliminate a problem without publicly shedding blood. Travel accounts from Colorado and other frontier regions describe individuals who were rejected from one settlement after another. Every town shut its doors. Every road led farther into isolation. Warnings appeared on doors, fences, and trees. Leave or die. No signatures. No hearings. No appeals. Those who ignored the message often vanished. Others appeared hanging from trees as examples to anyone tempted to challenge local authority. Banishment was not forgiveness. It was execution stretched across time and distance. Punishment number 9, deliberate abandonment when the landscape became the weapon. Imagine waking up alone in the middle of the desert. No horse. No water. No firearm. No clear direction. On the frontier, abandoning a person in hostile territory became a method of killing that required no trigger and no rope. In Arizona's deserts, extreme heat could destroy a person within hours. Without transportation, survival became almost impossible. Distances between settlements stretched across vast empty landscapes where dehydration arrived quickly. When a body was eventually discovered, the death could easily be dismissed as an accident, but accidents rarely removed someone's horse first. Mountain regions offered equally deadly conditions. Freezing temperatures, sudden storms, and complete isolation turned the wilderness into a silent execution ground. Entire communities sometimes participated indirectly by refusing aid or pretending not to notice what was happening. That invisibility made abandonment especially effective. No execution records. No witnesses. No official crime scene. Only a missing person and a story nobody wanted to tell. Accounts survived describing prisoners released into areas filled with rattlesnakes, dry canyons, or stretches of land without water for days. Freedom became the trap. The release itself was the sentence. The environment handled the rest. Punishment number 10, forced labor. When punishment had to generate profit. Across the American frontier, imprisonment often meant far more than confinement. Convicts were chained together and forced into brutal labor, building roads, working fields, digging mines, and performing dangerous tasks that free laborers frequently avoided. This system became known as the chain gang. The prisoner lost more than freedom. He lost ownership of his own body. Under convict leasing programs, governments rented prisoners to private businesses at extremely low cost. Railroad companies, plantation owners, and mining operations gained access to workers who could not resign, organize, or demand better treatment. The arrangement proved highly profitable. Human suffering became part of the business model. Heavy chains connected groups of prisoners together. They walked together, worked together, and slept together. If one man stumbled, others felt the consequences. Escape attempts endangered everyone attached to the chain. The sound of iron links dragging across the ground became a symbol recognized throughout the South and West. Work lasted from sunrise until sunset. Food remained scarce. Water was limited. Guards carried weapons and whips. Resistance often resulted in harsher treatment or immediate violence. In places such as Huntsville, prisoners worked fields that looked remarkably similar to plantations from the era before emancipation. The uniforms had changed, the system had not. Injuries from shackles became so common that they developed their own name. Skin tore open. Infections spread. Some wounds turned gangrenous. Medical attention was often considered unnecessary. If one prisoner died, another could replace him. The system valued labor more than lives. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery but left an exception for criminal punishment. That loophole allowed authorities to arrest individuals for minor offenses and place them into labor systems that closely resembled the institutions supposedly abolished. Thousands experienced exactly that fate. Many never escaped it. The roads, railways, and structures they built remain visible today. Their stories often do not. Punishment number 11. Public display of corpses when death itself became entertainment. On the frontier, execution did not always end a criminal's punishment. Sometimes it began a new spectacle. Dead outlaws were photographed, exhibited, and transformed into attractions. Their bodies generated curiosity, newspaper sales, and money long after life had ended. When famous bandits died, crowds gathered to view the remains. Bodies were preserved with ice and displayed publicly for days. Photographers sold images to eager customers. Souvenirs circulated across the country. The dead became products. One notorious incident during the 1890s, a failed bank robbery ended with several gang members killed by armed townspeople. Afterward, the bodies were arranged upright, weapons placed in their hands, and photographs taken like hunting trophies. The images spread nationwide. Even children posed beside open coffins. Death had become a public attraction. Perhaps the strangest case involved a little-known outlaw killed after stealing only a small amount of money from a train. When nobody claimed his remains, a funeral director preserved the body and began charging visitors to see it. The corpse spent decades traveling through carnivals, sideshows, wax museums, and amusement parks. Eventually, people forgot it belonged to a real person. For years, it was treated as a prop. Only in the 1970s did investigators finally identify the remains after discovering genuine human bones inside what many believed was a wax figure. More than 6 decades had passed. The dead outlaw had spent longer on display than he had lived. He was finally buried with proper ceremony, ending one of the strangest journeys in frontier history. Yet his story was not unique. Across the Wild West, bodies hung from gallows as warnings. Outlaws remained on display for crowds. Photographs turned death into memorabilia. The message was simple. On the frontier, dying did not always mean the punishment was over.